The Duval Rundown, driven by Jacksonville Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Westside, home of the lifetime warranty.
Good morning, Duval. Welcome to another edition of Duval Rundown. I'm Hayes Carline. Please be joined every Monday morning with voice of the Jaguars and host of the Frangie Show, Frank. Frank, man, that was a tough one. Just lots to get into today, obviously, as we break down a loss in Cincinnati. And a lot of good things, but unfortunately, boy, this one feels like the Jaguars allowed the Bengals to steal it with a backup quarterback.
Yeah, for the second time, by the way, in 3 years that Jake Browning beats him. He was, if you remember the game, and I know you do, the game that started the slide under Doug Peterson. They were 8-3 at the time, coming off the trip to the Elite Eight, if you will, the year before, and the Chargers win. They were 8-3 the next year, and everything was going well. And gosh, then that loss to the Bengals and Jake Browning started the 5 out of 6 losses, and they never resuscitated it again under that regime. So here we go with another regime. And yeah, this was a tough loss because it was theirs to win. I think, listen, it's a long season. It's only one of 17 games. They've only played 2 of 17 games. But man, they had every chance to start 2-0. I think that's what's going to really eat at them a little bit, is you had every chance. I don't want to say gave the game away, but you didn't make chant plays at the end that you should have made. Easy plays, certainly by football standards. And they weren't able to make those plays, and at the end of the day, they lost the game. That one stung, Hayes. There's no question about it. Again, it's a long year. It's only one game, but it's hard to get those back. It's hard to get the ones back that you had a chance to win. Listen, you never want to see a good player get hurt, and Joe Burrow's a wonderful player. But if it happens that he gets hurt in your game, you have to take advantage of it, and the Jags weren't able to do so.
Yeah, I agree, and I really thought the game kind of could be boiled down in essence to Cincinnati's receivers made plays, played physical, and the Jaguar receivers had some drops. I thought De'Ami Brown played a pretty good game, but had a really costly drop in the end zone on a fairly routine pass. But Frank, the one that it can't be ignored now is Brian Thomas Jr. It's like, what has happened? I mean, you can't play football timid. And look, people are going to have bad games. CeeDee Lamb had an atrocious game in the opener for Dallas against Philadelphia. But his drops weren't because he was timid and looked afraid of contact. He just dropped the ball. Brian Thomas Jr. yesterday looked like he was afraid of being touched, that he wanted to be playing flag football. I can't understand it. And boy, it's going to be, I think, hard for him to build some respect back in the locker room, because when his teammates see the film, it wasn't just 1 or 2 times. There are 4 examples of Brian Thomas Jr. just acting like he was afraid to get hit. I think it's now time to panic on what is going on with Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, well, I got a lot of thoughts on all of it. First of all, the game. You don't lose a game on 1 or 2 plays. You lose the game, the whole game. I get that. But they came down to 2 plays. It came down to De'Ami Brown dropping the pass in the end zone and Brian Thomas not making the catch on 4th down. And again, you win and lose. And Liam Cohen, the Jaguars put out his post game, which was fantastic. We win as a team. We lose as a team. You don't lose on one game, on one player with one player. But those are 2 gigantic plays. There's no getting around that. Trevor Lawrence can't throw those balls any better. De'Ami's got to catch the ball in the back of the end zone. And the concerns about Brian Thomas are certainly making us forget about the catch. De'Ami's got to catch that ball. You catch that touchdown, I don't think it ever comes down to the last play. And then on 4th down, Brian Thomas has to catch the ball. So those are 2 gigantic plays. We can talk about the pass interference. I thought it was a bad call, by the way. I thought the pass interference got called for a lot of the wrong reasons, and we'll get to that coming up later on. But for now, there's 2 catches you got to make. Back to Brian Thomas. Here's my take on that. First of all, I wouldn't panic. It's 2 games into the season. But it's clearly a developing story that at least for one game, he looked like a guy that was afraid of contact. Now, look, football's hard, man. I don't play it. I'm not playing it at the NFL level. It's freaking hard. I mean, it's tough. You have to be a tough guy to play that game. But for whatever reason, and only Brian knows this, and by the way, the teammates don't have to see the tape. every one of us have seen Twitter and X, and we've all seen all the plays. We know the plays where he short-armed a few balls and avoided contact. The football people like to say, turned it down. That's a football player's phrase. He turned down the contact. Well, everybody, they all know by now, everybody that follows the Jags closely knows that Brian turned down contact too many times. What they have to do is get to the bottom of it. And I think that's the story moving forward. I even think even the last play, the drop on fourth down, he looked away. You got to wonder, was he fearing contact?
Absolutely.
I mean, and on the other plays, you knew he was because he ducked down and short arm balls. On the other two plays that stand out to me, the one that really stands out, and then the one in the end zone that sort of stood out. But the last play, you even wonder, did he look up because he's fearing contact? So obviously, that's now a developing story. And that's a story that they've got to get to the bottom of, and they will. I don't know how, but they'll sit down and talk to Brian and say, listen, Brian, again, it's not a secret anymore. What you put on tape, everybody saw that. So that's a developing story. What happens with that? Is it a one-time thing? Did he get his bell rung now and he can't shake it? They've got to get to the bottom of that. So yes, I don't know how to get to the bottom of it. I don't know what the bottom of it is, Hayes. But yeah, they got to get to the bottom of that. But back to the game for a second. The shame of the game is if he catches that ball, and he has the first down, by the way. I've watched it 10 times from a bunch of different angles. He caught it around the 3 or 4, but there was no one close enough to stop him for diving to the 2. So I think he'd have had the first down. That's what hurts, is you had the game won. And I'll say one other thing about that. And I've heard more coaches in today's football, Hayes, say this. You don't win a game by backpedaling on defense and hoping you get a stop. Not anymore. Back in the day, you could hope to get a stop and win the game. Now you win the game by getting ahead and then taking a knee when you get the ball back. Teams that backpedal on defense at the end of the game usually lose the game. That's not just a Jaguar thing. That's not how you win games today. That's why those two drops were so critical. So a lot of storylines. De'Ami's got to catch the ball. Brian's got to catch the ball. And I agree with you. A developing storyline is Brian Thomas shied away from contact a few times. He's got to get with Liam. He's got to get with the team. And let's figure out why that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, even on a reception that Brian Thomas had he has room after he catches kind of a little, not slant, but kind of a play in which he's going to the middle of the field, catches the ball 10, 12 yards down the field, has room, and he just falls down. I mean, he just slides down.
Yeah.
I mean, again, he had a wonderful rookie season, obviously, but he had a bad training camp. I mean, really, the drops were a problem. The contact never really showed up, but of course, he knows he's not going to get lit up in a practice. But I mean, it's striking. I mean, the interception early in the game, you have total control of the game, and maybe Trevor could have taken something off of the one in the middle of the field, but he just puts one hand up,
right, and
sort of shrinks, and the ball gets ricocheted, gets intercepted. One in the back of the end zone, where if you're a receiver of any consequence in this league, you're attacking that ball, you're trying to high point it. He shrinks down and just puts one hand up. I mean, I can't imagine they're going to put up with that for very long. Liam was asked about it in his post game, and which was a fantastic presser, by the way. And seemed like there was some more meat on the bone, but he wanted to, I think, sort of collect himself. I mean, this is the star player of your offense, and you can't do this. I mean, I'm still at a loss for words. I still can't believe that it occurred. Again, it's one thing if you drop 3 or 4 passes in a game, people have bad games. These guys aren't robots. But to kill your team because you're timid, I just can't. I will be very interested in hearing what Liam says today about it, and what and what the vibe is coming out of the locker room from it, because I just can't imagine that his teammates are going to be anything but livid when they really do get into the nuts and bolts of his performance yesterday. And I'm sorry to keep harping on it, but I mean, he's a player that I like, and I thought it was a stunning lack of toughness.
Well, and here, and I'll say this: he's played 19 games. That's happened once. I don't even last week he only had one catch, but I don't remember, unless I'm missing something. I don't remember him turning down contact, at least not visibly.
I don't either.
Yeah. So I think you have to be careful not to say, well, no, he's afraid of contact. He can never play in the NFL again. Well, he's afraid of contact. Now it's clear. I get rid of him. It's a disaster. It's one game. Now, to your point, though, you got to get to the bottom of it. And obviously they're going to do that. They're going to say, listen, bro, we all saw this. Is something happened? He obviously, that wasn't the case last year. If he was afraid of contact, he wouldn't have had the huge year he had last year. That's obvious. Now, he ran a lot of go routes last year, and it wasn't as much stuff around over the middle. But he wouldn't have been to this. He wouldn't have gotten to this point in his career. He played in the SEC for a bunch of years. He played in the NFL as one of the best young receivers in the NFL. You can't be afraid of contact and get to where he is now if that's the case. But to your point, it was very clear yesterday he turned down contact. He shied away from it, and it helped cost him the game. So now you got to go. And again, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a football coach. And I reemphasize it again. We're not players. We haven't had to live what they've had to live. It's a hard game. But they've got to get to the bottom of it. I think that more than anything else is let's get to the bottom of this. Why did it happen? Now, I've seen baseball players that get hit one time with a fastball, and they're never the same. Did he get hit sometime? I remember I was even overthinking it like we do. If you remember the first preseason game,
right?
Trevor threw one high and he got drilled, and you're thinking, did that affect him? Did that stay with him?
Yeah.
And we're probably overthinking it, but we're trying to your point, we're trying to think through it. So
I think it's very plausible. And I do think it speaks to what kind of trust level does he have with Trevor Lawrence? Because I think part of it is when you see a receiver play this timid, it makes you wonder, because I agree with you. He's an NFL player. Obviously, he's a very tough individual to make it to the NFL. No one would argue that. But in the scope of an NFL player, where does his toughness fall if that's the scale? Not the scale of an average person, the scale of a professional football player. And it does speak to what's his level of trust in Trevor Lawrence, because he looks like a guy that feels like anytime Trevor Lawrence throws him the ball, it's a hospital ball. And if he goes and gets it to where Trevor has placed it, he's going to wind up laid out on the field.
Yeah. And I think Hayes, and again, I'll say it again, all those are issues that I've got to believe they'll discuss. I do believe this in my heart of hearts. The most successful people in the world don't overreact to one moment, whether it's in sports, whether it's in whatever. It was one day. It was one game. Now, if you can't get that corrected, now you got a problem. It's obviously a developing storyline, and people will talk about it all week long to follow the Jaguars. But the smartest thing they can do is not overreact, but to your point, not underreact either. It happened, and it's got to get corrected. So I think you sit there, whatever you do with Brian Thomas, you get to the bottom of it. And my guess is by now they've already begun that process. My guess is by now Liam and Brian have spoken. Brian and Edgar Bennett have spoken. Trevor's probably involved in those conversations. Grant Udinsky's probably involved in those conversations. I mean, by now it's 9:15 the day after the game. I doubt if they've just let that lie by now. So I think they're beginning, and then look, they're going to have to answer that all week long. Liam and his pressers, hey, are you concerned that Brian Thomas doesn't want to get hit? And Liam's going to have to answer that. And he knows that. And Brian's going to have to answer it again. Look, I saw some of the interviews yesterday after the game, and he was very short with his answers. He was frustrated. He kept saying, I just got to catch the ball, Well, so at some point, someone's going to say, were you afraid of the contact? And he's going to have to answer that. So this is a big week to address all of that. Again, now if it happens again, well, then you got a pattern. All right, then you got a pattern. But his 19-game NFL career does not suggest that's a pattern. It doesn't. That's the fact. We have to see whether or not it continues.
Jacob, let's hear from our sponsor real quick.
I'm Rick Ballou, Jacksonville Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Westside, proud partner of the Jaguars. Drive with confidence. Every new vehicle comes with our exclusive lifetime warranty. 7030 Commonwealth Avenue or online at jackswest.com.
There was a lot of other layers to this game, Frank, and again, it is terribly disappointing. that they weren't able to get the victory because it really would have put them in a fantastic place, tied with Indianapolis, with Houston coming into town. But looking at some of the other facets of this game, one thing that really stands out is the Jaguars have the right offensive mind leading this ship. I mean, the stuff that Liam Cohen is pulling out is, I think, really innovative, very creative. I thought he kept Cincinnati on their heels. The offense never seemed to really get bogged down in terms of, running the scheme. There were drops and things like that. Walker Little gave up, a pressure, and Trevor throws a bad interception, in the red zone. So there were some execution things, but boy, it seems like Liam Cohen really knows how to run an offense at this level.
Yeah, I think so too. Again, it's 2 games in, but they seem to be in a good place. I can tell you, being around the team, the locker room after the game, on the plane afterwards with them, walking to the buses afterwards, talking to a few players here and there as everybody left, they were devastated. I say devastated. They were really down that they lost the game because they thought they had the game. They outplayed the Bengals, which I think they did, and they lost the game, and that was a gut punch. But I think the vibe around them is they got a lot of the right stuff in place. I agree with you. I think he's a good play caller. He seemed to have the right plan. I fully agreed with going for it on that 4th down, by the way. I know you're going to get to that. Beyond the catch, do you go for it? Do you kick the field goal to make it?
Yeah, go ahead and walk us through your thoughts on that.
Yeah, again, in this day and age, in my opinion, you don't win football games by backpedaling on defense. If they kick the field goal there, they're up 6, and now you're backpedaling on defense. Now, look, maybe Cincinnati doesn't score the touchdown, but they did score a touchdown anyway. So maybe they don't. Maybe they're more tense because they know they need the touchdown. Maybe they played looser because they knew really all they needed was the field goal there. But in my mind, in my opinion, you don't take you go for the jugular there. You don't win the game backpedaling on defense. Liam was asked afterwards, and he said all the analytics pointed to it. I believe that, but to me, it's not even about the analytics. It's about you've got a chance to make a few yards. You've got a good offense. You go for the jugular and you put them away. I thought it was the right decision. I thought it was the right decision at the time. I would have done it again at the time. He called the right play. Brian didn't catch the ball. So I appreciate the fact that they went for that. So for me, I got a lot of other thoughts about the game we'll get to. But back to your question about your point about Liam. Yeah, I think he's the right guy. I think he's got the right mindset. He's the right play caller. You said something on one of our radio shows earlier that he's today's play caller, right? That the game has changed and what works on offense is different than what worked 5, 6, 10 years ago. And he's today's play caller. He's today's offensive player developer. And I think you can see that. He just needs his guys to make some plays.
Yeah, we've got only a couple more minutes on Duval Rundown. So let's get to some of the stuff, Frank, that, the Travis Hunter PI and anything else that stood out to you from the game.
All right, first of all, on the PI, I don't care what you say. That's a play that that got called, he's a rookie. It's at the end of the game. It's on the Bengals sideline where they're all screaming at the guy, and there was hand fighting. The reality, in fairness to the official, it's a hard game to officiate. All right, you're screaming, you hear yelling. There's 60,000 people all wanting you to call it one way. It's up to you now to decide. At that point, that official was deciding the game. That was it. The official was going to decide the game at that moment, and he fired that flag out there. If it's on the other sideline, if Travis is a veteran player, if it was the other team, that doesn't get called. It should not have been called as interference. You'll never convince me that was interference. I thought he got screwed on a bad call. Now, they should have won the game before that, but I thought it was a bad call. Other things that stood out, they've got a running game. It's a legit running game. Bayshaw Tootin didn't even run it very much, but he's a really good-looking runner. They run block this. They went and brought in a group that would run block. I think they've got that. I think Devin Lloyd stepped up. He might have separated himself from Ventrell Miller a little bit. I thought he had a terrific game. I thought a lot of good happened. The bad that happened is once you have a chance to, in the National Football League, Hayes, once you have a chance to win the game and don't win it, then sometimes you lose it. And I think that's what happened. They had a chance to win the game. And again, you don't want it to go back to 1 or 2 plays, but it does. The Diami drop in the end zone. and the Brian Thomas drop on fourth down were the plays that cost them the game. That's just how it is. That's just how I heard someone say that. Well, you don't lose the game in the fourth quarter. The plays in the first quarter matter too. Listen, the NFL is a one-possession league. Someone wins by one possession. That's how it is. And the teams that make the big play at the end of the game, you watch the Chiefs-Eagles game, right? The Chiefs are driving down the field. They've got the ball on the 5 or 6 yard line, whatever it was. They throw the ball. Kelsey, you watched the game, right? You were watching the game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kelsey drops the ball. It's an interception, and that's the ball game.
That's the ball game. And if Kelsey catches the ball, they take the lead. I think they would have won the ball game. Okay, so that's that. You can talk about what you want in the first half, all you want, Hayes, or in the first quarter or the second quarter. But in the National Football League, those are the plays that determine wins and championships. And Kelsey didn't catch the ball, and the Eagles won the game. Well, at the end of the game, Diami and Brian didn't catch the ball, and the Bengals won the game. And so, but you shake it off again. I think they're at a good place. I think there's vibes good. I sensed it being around them afterwards that they still feel like this could be a special season. They like where this team is. They're all pulling in the same direction. I know that's a cliche, but I think it's true. So I think find a way to shake this one off. It's going to be hard because you had the game won, but you have to move on to the Texans.
Yeah, well said. Well, Frank, we certainly appreciate it. We'll look forward to chatting with you next Monday on Duval Rundown, and I'll see you later today for the Frangie Show.
Bye, Hayes. Thanks, buddy.
All right, take care, guys. That's going to do it for Duval Rundown. We will be back on Wednesday with Ryan O'Halloran, sports columnist of the Florida Times-Union. Until then, thanks for watching Duval Rundown.